morning to all, and a Happy New Year to each and every one of you. Welcome to yet another of the Premier's monthly press conferences. After a challenging 2020, we trust that your 2021 will be healthy, safe, successful, and prosperous. For those joining us for the first time, the format for this morning's press conference is as follows. The Premier will make his statement. Members of the press corps will be given the opportunity to ask their questions. In so doing, we kindly ask you to give your name and the agency that you represent. Just in case we have to give you follow-up information after the press conference, we will know who to give it to. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further gilding of the lily, join me in welcoming to the podium the Honorable Premier of Nevis, Mark A.G. Brantley.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning to the members of the press and, of course, all of those who are gathered. I'm very happy to be here for what is the first press conference for the new year. And I'm very proud of this new tradition that we've started of having these press engagements. I am proud that as Premier I was able to introduce this, and it affords us, of course, another opportunity for greater transparency in government. I start on a sad note. I would like to extend my sincerest condolences and the condolences of the government to the family of the late great Grace Manners of Hickman's Village. Grace was at the time of her death on Monday, January 25th, employed in the family division of the Department of Social Services. She served the department with distinction and was due to return to work in mid-February. We at the Ministry and Department of Social Development are deeply saddened at her tragic passing. Nevis has lost a very humble, caring, committed, and dedicated person, and the department has lost a very dedicated employee. Our thoughts and prayers are certainly with the family of the late Grace Manners. I had the opportunity to speak to her husband, Carl Manners, this morning, and certainly they're in our prayers. Let me also extend deep condolences to the family of Mrs. Keynes, there of Government Road, to the family of Mrs. David of Hanley's Road, to the family of Mrs. Liebert, the mother of Stryker and Dr. Liebert, and their other children. We want to extend condolences to them as well, and also to my dear friend Mrs. Brown, who was from St. Kitts, Sandy Point, but who lived in Statia, and whom I had the benefit of meeting while I was there. I would like, of course, to extend deepest condolences to all of those who mourn. If I can segue from the condolences to congratulations, allow me please to congratulate the Empire Cricket team for winning the 2020 cricket tournament organized by the Nevis Cricket Association. The tournament would have run from November 2020 and concluded on Sunday, January 17, 2021 at the VOJN grounds. In the finals, Empire defeated All Stars. The third place position was taken by the youths of Nevis. Let me also announce that after a successful Swim to Win initiative in 2020, they are due to commence a second round on February 7, 2021. I believe the members of the press and the public would remember that we initiated this particular program because we were of a view that too many of our people couldn't swim. And I'm very proud that thus far I'm advised that some 70 persons have benefited from that program, and we are hopeful that others will step forward. For those of you members of the press in here who can't swim, this is a good opportunity for you to step forward and learn. The initiative is a collaboration with the Department of Sports, the Four Seasons Homeowners Association, the St. Kitts Nevis Swimming Federation, the Red Cross, the Special Olympics Nevis, and Sail to a Brighter Future organization. Let me move on to a few announcements. As we obviously seek valiantly in Nevis to try and rebuild our economy after the ravages of COVID-19, I am pleased to announce that the Nevis Island Administration has been successful in attracting another international bank to Nevis, which brings us to three. This one, I'm advised, is called International Merchant Bank, and I'm advised shortly to open their doors and have already started to hire persons. Let me also advise the press that we will be inviting you back on Tuesday of next week. I believe that's the 2nd of February, when we launch the new and very interactive and innovative site for the Nevis Investment Promotion Agency. We launch a new logo. We launch a new approach to business on Nevis. This government is committed to business and business development, particularly foreign direct investment, and we felt that having a portal that was modern, that was interactive, that provided at a single touch all the information that investors needed, that was an appropriate investment for us to make. I am delighted that we've made considerable progress, and we are now in a position to officially launch that next Tuesday. And I'm sure that members of the press will receive that invitation and hope that you will come to what we hope will be a very, very exciting new venture for the island of Nevis. I'm advised that the new site will set Nevis apart, that no one else in our region has done or attempted to do anything similar. And on that basis, I certainly look forward to a revamped Nevis Investment Promotion Agency, revamped logo, revamped attitude, revamped approach, where we put innovation at the forefront of what we're doing, and hopefully we can enhance our ease of doing business standing as we make it easier for persons to do business in Nevis. Let me also announce, since I'm in the announcing mood, that we have taken a decision to employ one Latoya Jones as a special advisor to the Premier on community matters. Ms. Jones, a young woman who's known to all of us, she holds a bachelor's degree in accounting with a concentration in finance. She graduated summa cum laude. She has been a teacher, a senior tax officer, an auditor, an assistant regulator in insurance, and her involvement in the community is very well known. She is currently president of the Rotaract Club of Nevis and has been involved in athletics and Culturama and in a host of community activities. I would wish to welcome Ms. Jones. She would have been here today, but regrettably is suffering from this terrible flu that is going around. And so we wish her a speedy recovery and hope that she will provide excellent service to the people of Nevis as we put our community front and center, as we seek to develop and bring to the fore the concerns emanating from our communities. All the other constituencies, you'll be aware, have a representative in terms of a parliamentary representative, in terms of a representative in the cabinet more specifically, and I speak, of course, of the good people of Gingerland, the good people of St. John's, the good people of St. Paul's, and the good people of St. James. The good people of St. Thomas's have been without a cabinet representative now since 2013. Prior to that, they were without a cabinet representative from 1992, if memory serves, until 2006. They have been left out for the most part. And it is our hope that having someone appointed from that constituency, someone who is active in that community, that the concerns, the needs of that community will be brought more forcefully to the attention of the government and of the cabinet. Ms. Jones, of course, will not be restricted to St. Thomas's. She will have the responsibility to advise on matters throughout the island in terms of community. But that constituency and that community in particular, I think, of course, of the people of Craddock Road, the people of Jessops, the people of Barnesgut and Cotton Ground, the people of Westbury, that those have been without any formal representation for a very, very long time in the cabinet. And so having someone who could come and report and direct and advise us to the concerns we feel is an important initiative which ought to be welcomed by the people of Nevis. Let me continue in the reporting mode and to say that the Ministry of Human Resources is very pleased to announce, and I am excited to announce, that Kiana Lawrence of Nisbet Settlement, St. James Parish, is a recent recipient of a Romanian scholarship. Ms. Lawrence will pursue a bachelor's degree in graphics design at the University of Timisoara, Romania. The Romanian scholarship program is offered by the Romanian state through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that I'm privileged to lead. We're in a different hat. Our citizens are afforded the opportunity to pursue bachelor's, master's, or doctoral degrees. Ms. Lawrence should be congratulated, and we wish her every success. Now, why am I proud? I'm proud because, as you know, I am almost fanatical about education. And I go across the globe and I promote, I ask for, I request scholarship and training opportunities. I have complained from this podium and elsewhere that in the main our people do not take advantage of these opportunities for a variety of reasons. Cultural, social mores, people say things like that's too far. And so I'm so proud of Miss Kiana Lawrence that she has stepped up and she's going to Romania. She will follow in the footsteps of some from our sister island of St. Kitts who themselves have taken advantage of this opportunity. While I'm on the issue of scholarships and training, let me also use this rostrum to remind that through the Human Resources Department, we are offering the Turkish Scholarship 2021. Scholarships are available in Turkey for bachelor's, master's, and doctoral programs. The deadline for application is the 20th of February this year. We are also in the throes of offering the Taiwan, MOFA, and ICDF scholarships for 2021. These scholarships are available in undergraduate and graduate studies. The deadline for the applications to reach the Ministry of Human Resources is the 22nd of February 2021. We are also offering Canada CARICOM Skills Training for the Green Economy scholarships. These are short-term programs for persons pursuing certificates, diplomas, and associate degrees in the following areas: climate-smart agriculture, coastal and fisheries management, renewable energy, sustainable building techniques, agroforestry. The application period for these scholarships is January to March 2021. The general public is encouraged to contact Mrs. Shanola Murray-Gill or Ms. Ronnie Williams at the Ministry of Human Resources for any further information about these scholarships. I have taken the time, members of the press, and for those who are tuned in, to highlight these scholarships. Why? Because we have been making a concerted effort here at the Nevis Island Administration to encourage our young people especially to take advantage. In order to do that, we have in fact set up a scholarship desk at the Department of Human Resources. And the idea there is that those who are interested have, if you will, a one-stop shop, a place that they can go and get accurate, timely, and up-to-date information as to the requirements, the qualifications that you would have to access these scholarships, to get assistance in filling out the forms if necessary, and to get all information about deadlines and the like. So we certainly have tried to make it as easy as possible for our people, especially in this environment where we know jobs are tight because of a variety of factors, most important of which is the tremendous negative impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the island and the island's economy, the devastation of our tourism industry, which ordinarily employs quite a few people. We continue to suggest to our young people that this might be the good time to go off and study and prepare yourself to come back when we are ahead now and out of this pandemic to take up employment and to make your contribution here. If you're having a difficult time finding a job, and we understand the difficulties currently being experienced, this might be an opportune time for you to take advantage of some of these scholarship opportunities. And so we encourage you to go in and to have a look. Now, I go now to some very exciting news. And this has to do with the fact that, again, in an effort to stimulate the local economy, my government has been very active in trying to find new areas that we can venture into. We recognize that the traditional areas of tourism that we rely so heavily on, financial services and others, have taken a hit, and that we have been struggling, particularly in tourism, which continues to be the mainstay of the Nevis economy. We have not sat still. We have continued our very best to find new avenues to generate jobs and generate economic activity. I am therefore very pleased to announce to the public that we have entered into an arrangement with a company called MSR Media to do 2 feature films on the island of Nevis. The MSR media producer, Philip Martinez, would have announced today to the international media that he will shoot a new comedy feature called 1 Year Off on the Caribbean island of Nevis. The film will be directed by Brad Watson, who did films like Miss Willoughby and The Haunted Bookshop. The film is written by Kate Wood, the writer of Miss Willoughby and The Haunted Bookshop, Mr. Martinez, who wrote Father Christmas is Back, and Stuart Thompson's BBC show The Break. From an original idea by Martinez, casting is underway for this ensemble comedy. 1 Year Off is the first film announced under a two-picture production deal that MSR Media has negotiated with my government. Stringent COVID-19 guidelines have helped Nevis become a COVID-safe zone. A cast and crew of about 50 people have already started to arrive in Nevis under strict COVID protocols. I want to make that very clear, that there has been no relaxation of our COVID protocols. And so everyone coming in, cast and crew for these movies, will have to do the 14-day quarantine, have to do the testing that everyone else has to go through. So we have not asked for any special favors, and we explained to Mr. Martinez and his team that they would be required to adhere to the same standards as anyone else. They agreed, and I'm very pleased that he is here and others have already started to arrive. I think by my last count, we had over 20 persons who had already arrived, including some of the stars. You will hear who the stars are in the fullness of time, no doubt. But they're here, and they will be here, I'm advised, until around about the middle of May, the third week of May or thereabouts. And so we have from now until then. If I can continue from the press release, Mr. Martinez has stated, we are extremely proud to announce his partnership with the government of Nevis. Premier Mark Brantley's vision to develop the film industry is clear and exciting. During our negotiations, we have found his team wonderfully efficient and reliable partners. We plan to shoot 4 films in the Caribbean in 2021 and are overjoyed to kick off with 1 year off on Nevis. All of us at MSR Media hope to contribute to the development of the entertainment industry that will benefit the people of Nevis while offering a safe place for film productions. Principal photography for the British production is set to begin on February 25th. Under this far-reaching production deal, the Nevis government is offering access to multiple locations across the island and hotel support for visiting cast members. In turn, MSR Media has announced the creation of an education program to train local people in a variety of on-set roles in an effort to boost the island's production infrastructure. A plan to create an acting academy on the island is also underway. This collaboration between the island of Nevis and MSR Media was made possible thanks to the support of Colin Dorr, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Finance, Nevis, who was vital in arranging incentives and expediting work permits, Jadine Yard, the Chief Executive Officer of the Nevis Tourism Authority, who coordinated arrangements with the COVID-19 task force, negotiated preferential rates for accommodation, and facilitated introductions to local service providers, and the Invisible Hand Foundation, which introduced Nevis to MSR Media as a new hub for the entertainment industry and facilitated introduction to respective government agencies that made this deal possible, said Mr. Martinez. Alongside Philip Martinez, the film is produced with Alan Latham from Highfield Grange Studios. The film's financial partner is Kirsty Bell from Goldfinch Entertainment, who serves as executive producer alongside Lee Beasley and Karen Burr from MSR Media. MSR Media International is handling worldwide rights for the film. A little bit about MSR Media. It is a boutique film and television production company based in York, England, led by producer Philip Martinez and managing director Lee Beasley. The company is uniquely positioned to create content suited to today's exciting market. Commercially viable film and television projects with very high production values, bankable lead actors, yet economically sound budgets. MSR Media has strategic international distribution partnerships through the international sales arm, MSR Media International, a boutique-style dynamic international sales company focusing on commercial feature films and television series for audiences around the world. Headquartered in the US with offices in the UK, MSR Media International's commercially driven principals have years of experience in the film industry, uniquely bringing together finance, production, and marketing skills to the company. MSR Media International fully understands the international sales market and assists and advises content producers on script development, production, finance, and crucially, the effective marketing campaign for the project to our long-standing buyers. I have quoted in part from a very extensive press release that goes out today. I believe it has already gone out today to markets globally. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that this is a very significant development for the island of Nevis. It is significant because it is the first time that we will have a feature film being produced on the island. It is the first time that we have not one but two feature films that we have partnered and negotiated to happen here. I'm advised that they will need about 30 employees locally during the production phase. Of course, technical and other people will no doubt be taken on board. And what I'm hopeful is that through the academy that they would wish to set up, we will have some important skills transfer. That is going to be critical, so that if we can develop this industry as we hope to, that over time, fewer and fewer people will have to be brought into the island. But on this occasion, for the first time, we have some 50 or so persons who have been brought in. And if you could imagine 50 persons on the island staying for roughly 3 months, 3.5 months, that too is significant for us. The media and the exposure for Nevis from this, I think, could be a game changer. And the fact that people internationally will now see Nevis as a film destination is for us a very important coup. So we are very grateful to the Invisible Hand Foundation, which made this introduction. We're very grateful to Mr. Martinez, who, having the whole Caribbean to choose from, opted to choose Nevis. But I cannot continue without also expressing my gratitude to our task force and those who have been on the front line in the fight against COVID-19. Because being part of the negotiations, I can tell you that the ultimate decision maker, the ultimate issue that pushed them towards Nevis was that we had had such an exemplary record in relation to COVID-19. They knew that we are serious. They have seen it even in terms of my own discussions with them about our protocols. And because they have confidence in our protocols, they have confidence in what we have been able to achieve in terms of COVID-19. That is how we won over other bigger and more established and better financed islands and countries in the region. So I think it's a good day for Nevis, and I hope that the press will agree that it is a remarkable opportunity and something that we hope now we can use as a springboard to great things happening here. Mr. Martinez is, I'm told, in love with the island. Have not yet met him, he's in quarantine, but I hope to meet him. And I'm hopeful that some members of the press who are here can have their acting skills activated and not just act at the Premier's press conference, but go out and act in a movie and get credit for that and paid for that. So I'm told they will need 30 workers, but they will also need about 200 extras. And extras, I'm told, are people who, stand at the bar, they are in the restaurant, they're walking on the street, etc. And extras are paid as well. So if you get a job as an extra, you're also paid. So 30 people will be the ones to actually do things like the transportation, the catering, etc. And then the extras are the ones who will actually appear in the movie alongside the main cast. So I'm very excited, and I hope that we find 200 people here who are willing to go out and earn a little money as extras in this first movie. The movie is called, again, 1 Year Off. I can tell you what the movie is about, but, I believe that we'll save that for another time. Let me continue. The St. Thomas's Primary School did something, I think, phenomenal a few days ago. And I wanted to mention it specifically because under the leadership of the head teacher, Norleen Smitten, and her staff, they arranged an event which saw the fathers for the children at that school coming to the school and engaging in an unusual way, perhaps with their daughters. And a video has surfaced, which has gone viral, of the fathers competing at combing their daughters' hair. And I know some look at it as maybe a bit comedic, because perhaps it is not traditional for fathers to comb their daughters' hair. And I recall one daughter, I believe it was the daughter of Minister Troy Liebert, saying that she's not going to go to town with her hair like that. But to see Troy Liebert, my colleague, and to see other fathers combing their daughters' hair and participating in such a meaningful way and creating such a meaningful bond with their children, and in this case, their daughters, I thought was something truly inspiring and phenomenal. And I thought I would mention it here because I want to commend the innovation that we keep seeing from our schools, from our people generally. I am not aware that this was any directive from the ministry to do this. This was an initiative, I'm advised, that emanated from the principal and staff at the St. Thomas's Primary School. And I want to give them every commendation. A matter of fact, I want this to become the sort of activity that we see replicated in other schools around the island. Thankfully, as Premier at my age, I can encourage it because I have no children whose hair needs combing and who are at that age anymore, because I'm not sure that I have the necessary skill set. But the fact of seeing fathers engage with their daughters in that way was truly heartwarming. And I realize that the video has gone viral, and I believe that the St. Thomas's Primary School should be commended. Some other quick notes. The Paradise Beach Resort has been voted Best Villa Resort of the Year for the second year by the award-winning International Caribbean World magazine. St. Kitts and Nevis was also voted as the Best Wedding Islands of the Year by the same magazine. I think that's good promotion for us, and congratulations to the Paradise Beach Resort. I'm also proud to announce that in addition to the Four Seasons Resort, the Paradise Beach Resort, and the Golden Rock Inn, that the Montpelier Plantation Inn has also now been approved by the COVID-19 task force to accept international guests. And so we look forward to some restoration of normalcy at that hotel, and yet another property on Nevis is back in business, so to speak. I would, since this is the first time I'm speaking publicly at this press conference, take the time to congratulate our Commissioner of Police, Mr. Hilroy Brandy, who has been awarded the Queen's Medal by Her Majesty the Queen for his distinguished and meritorious 39 years of service to law enforcement. Congratulations, Commissioner Brandy, the first Nevisian to serve as Commissioner of the Royal St. Kitts and Nevis Police Force. I also wish, since I'm in congratulatory mood, to applaud U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel Clayton James Sutton for receiving praise for his work in commanding the U.S. Virgin Islands National General Contingent in Washington, D.C. during the inauguration of President Biden. Clayton is a son of the soil who would have done many tours at the height of the Iraq and Afghanistan wars and led the security and recovery efforts in the USVI after the destruction from Hurricane Irma. And I know Clayton well. I believe the Permanent Secretary, Premier's Ministry, and Clayton were in the same class. And not because he looks younger than me, I was below them in school. So I want to point that out. But Clayton really has done well, and we want to commend him for his service. Let me go back to the St. Thomas's Primary School to also congratulate them on their 50th anniversary of that school. Let me spend a moment as well, although this doesn't really impact the Premier's ministry, so to speak. It does impact the island of Nevis, because we have recently had good news that some of our young diplomats are being posted overseas and are being allowed, therefore, to go overseas and to continue to develop their skill sets in diplomacy. One such is young Chanel Simmons, who's from Nevis. I believe she's from the Beach Road area. And another is young Sheldon Henry, who is from the Brick Hill area, I'm told, but Sheldon is also from Nevis. The other young lady is from St. Kitts, Denala, Laplace, and they will all be deployed internationally. And I'm very happy that these youngsters, who are absolutely wonderful at what they do, are being given this opportunity and therefore are going off to do more for their country in the area of diplomacy. Some more announcements, members of the press. Forgive me, but there's a lot that I have to report on. The Board of Directors of NEVLEC is pleased to advise that Mr. Albert Gordon has been chosen as the new general manager of that company. Mr. Gordon holds a BSc in electrical engineering and an MBA in finance, along with several other qualifications. He is trained not only in electricity but also in water. He is presently employed as the CEO of the Guyana Power and Light, Inc. His contract ends on the 31st of January, and he will then come to us and take up his position as of February 2021. I believe the members of the press were aware, the question is often asked, that we were in a search for a new general manager at NEVLEC, and having conducted their interviews, the board has made a decision. Some announcements in relation to water. The Nevis Water Department will be collecting the solid waste disposal levy on behalf of the Nevis Island Administration instead of NEVLEC during the second quarter of 2021. The necessary legislative changes, regulations, policies, etc. will be put in place. The Nevis Water Department will also be relocating their offices shortly to better serve the general public and to avoid a potential rising health issue with the presence of mold at their old office. The offices, including the billing section, will be in the Solomon Arcade, which is located opposite the War Memorial in the heart of Charlestown. The Nevis Water Department will also have its first Water Department staff retreat next Tuesday at the Nevis Performing Arts Center under the theme Challenge Yourself in a Changing Working Environment. Now, an important notice. The Water Department is asking all persons, entities and businesses who are in arrears to settle all outstanding debts with the Nevis Water Department as soon as possible. The department will implement a disconnection program due to non-payment starting 1st of March 2021. We've given, I believe, ample time. Your full cooperation and understanding will be greatly appreciated as we seek to improve the services to the general public. Now, why are we engaging in this? I will tell you, members of the press, that the numbers are simply staggering. The numbers are staggering. And the kind of people and businesses that are on the list for not paying for water will make even the hardest heart cry. I believe that all of us must play our part. And it cannot be fair that the single mother who is currently unemployed is trying to find her little money each month to pay for water, and big companies and wealthy people in the community are refusing to pay. The same is true of electricity. There seems to be a cadre of people in our community who feel that these things ought to be free for them. But the minute that water goes off, Tutmon Saman Bagay takes to the media, social media. They abuse everybody because there's no water in the pipes. But somehow we seem to forget that the staff has to be paid. That the generation of water to bring it to your homes costs money. And that water is currently a heavily subsidized commodity. They say water is life, but it's one of the cheapest commodities that is available. So when people are paying, what is it, $30, $40 maybe for 10,000 gallons of water, and not paying, and when I see on the list important companies and important individuals in the community owing $19,000, $20,000, $30,000, how you get to $30,000 if water is $40 for 10,000 gallons? It means that you haven't paid in years. So we are saying it is time for us to get serious. And for people simply to be responsible citizens. We are not seeking to put any additional burden or hardship on our people. We understand the situation. But I go back to my analogy. It is unfair for the single mother, the struggling father, the old grandmother, to have to find the resources to get water and electricity, and persons who we know can pay, businesses that we know can pay, refuse to pay. And so we are getting serious, and I'm making the announcement openly that persons can go in and do the right thing. And if you cannot pay all, that is okay. Go in and make an arrangement. But at least demonstrate that you are a responsible citizen and that you understand that we cannot generate or run these departments on air or ether. We need those who are consuming to pay for what they consume. And so we encourage you to do the right thing. We have mentioned before the milling machine that we purchased, the brand new milling machine to help us in our public works activities, particularly our road work. And I'm pleased that the supplier will be here to officially commission the machine during the period 6th to 17th February. During the training, actual milling and resurfacing of sections of our road networks will be undertaken, and we anticipate that that will negatively impact the flow of traffic temporarily. And so we ask for your patience as we seek to get through what we need to do. Ministry of Health, let me segue there. Some very important announcements. In recognition of Cervical Cancer Awareness Month, the Community Health Nursing Services will be hosting their annual free pap smear drive on Saturday, January 30th at all 6 health centers on the island between the hours of 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. We encourage women to go and ascertain their status. Detection saves lives. And again, I have been relentless in seeking to invite the press to help me with the messaging that detection saves lives. And that cervical cancer in particular, if detected early, can be cured. It is one of those cancers which does not necessarily mean a death sentence. But our women have to take responsibility for their health. And we're not asking you to go to a doctor and pay. We are offering the service for free. We're offering the service for free. Go to your health center in your community between the hours of 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. on Saturday, January 30th, and ascertain your status. Please take responsibility for your health. We know we do the prostate screening for men, and that has resulted in dramatic reductions, I'm told, in the incidences of prostate cancer on the island of Nevis. We can do the same for cervical cancer. We have introduced the HPV vaccine, and we know that if women go and any cell changes are detected, that cervical cancer can be dealt with at an early stage. I am imploring you, please take advantage of these opportunities. Contact the Charlestown Health Center, 469-5521, the Brownhill Health Center, 661-7653, the Gingerland Health Center, 469-5521, the Butlers Health Center, 469-8254, the Combermere Health Center, 469-9323, or the Cotton Ground Health Center, 469-5521. We are bringing the necessary health care right into your communities, and we ask you to take advantage of it. Get up, put on your clothes, and go on Saturday and get tested. The Health Promotion Unit presents a series of monthly activities aimed at increasing physical activity and improving health and wellness while enjoying the natural environs of our lovely island. Registration is required for these activities. For the month of January, a hike is planned to the Maddens Waterfall. You can call them, the Health Promotion Unit, to register at 469-5521. Some other exciting news. In an effort to improve our emergency services, the Alexandra Hospital has recently introduced a dedicated emergency number, 469-3333. This may sound simple, but I think it's a giant leap forward for Nevis. Because right in this room, I've had the complaint that when people dial 911, they're not sure what happens. Sometimes they say the phone is picked up in St. Kitts. Sometimes people have difficulty trying to explain. Well, you know we've invested recently in 2 brand new ambulances, the first of its kind for the island. We have now gone and had a dedicated line, 469-3333, for emergency calls to our hospital. Calls will be answered promptly, and the caller will be asked to stay on the line to provide the operator with some basic information pertaining to the nature of the emergency, location, address, etc. Please, I'm asking you to be responsible with the use of this number. Put differently and colloquially, don't call the number for foolishness. The number is for serious emergencies, and we're asking them to use it sensibly and be responsible. 469-3333. 3333. That is the number to call if you need the ambulance or emergency services from our hospital. I want to go on record to congratulate Madam Minister Hazel Brandy and the entire team, the Prominent Secretary Shalisa Martin. They have done a phenomenal job in getting this to this point. Another major announcement. I have so many headlines today I don't know. You all be writing for the rest of the month, I believe, at least. Because today I'm announcing that many of you would be aware that our matron of long-standing, Nurse Diaz, Matron Diaz, that she has decided that it is time for retirement. And our second in command there, Nurse Scarborough, is also at the point when she too will be retiring. And so we did an exhaustive search, invited applications, and had a broad panel of interviewers to determine who we could select to replace these nurses who have served us so importantly and so wonderfully over the past many years. I am pleased to announce today that Nurse Chandrika Prasad Wallace is to be appointed matron, while Nurse Gracelyn Hanley and Nurse Daima Golden will provide support in the roles of assistant matrons with special responsibilities. Now this is new. It's the first time we've had, if you will, a talent search of this kind, where we have asked for applications and done extensive interviews. The interviews, I'm told, were done based on the resumes, based on the approach, but we also did something interesting. We asked the other nurses and the staff what they thought about the applicants, and that review was also part of the process. Not only that, but these 3 nurses, who were the 3 shortlisted, are all very talented. They are all nationals of St. Kitts and Nevis, and they have all performed remarkably well. They have all educated themselves and equipped themselves for the role, and they're all young women. It means, therefore, that we hope that we will have many years from them. More women being empowered, and I'm happy to see that. Another innovation here is that whereas in the past we had only 1 deputy matron, we have now bifurcated that role and we'll have 2. And they will be assigned special responsibilities. And so the matron will have the support of 2 senior persons as her deputy, assigned different responsibilities. So we are pioneering a new structure at the hospital, and I would want to take this opportunity to congratulate Nurse Chandrika Prasad Wallace, Nurse Gracelyn Hanley, and Nurse Daima Golden. In the month of December, the Ministry of Health was the recipient of 10 boxes of non-medical masks. These masks, I'm told, came up to 10,000 masks, and they were donated by a well-known division, Mr. Lofton Sargent. Mr. Sargent is, I believe, originally from Cotton Ground. I hope I'm right. Sargent is a Cotton Ground name. But he lives in the Washington, D.C. area, I think. And he contacted me and he said, through his connections, he wanted to make a substantial contribution. And we are very grateful to you, Mr. Sargent, if you're listening. If you're not and your family's listening, I hope they'll convey to you our warm appreciation and thanks for remembering us here in Nevis. And that is why the diaspora has always been so important. I tell people all the time that regardless of where people happen to live, their hearts remain in Nevis because we have a special bond, that umbilical cord that connects us to our island, the island of our birth. And here's Mr. Sargent, who has lived abroad for all these years, saying, I have access to masks and I'm going to make some available. And we will share those masks with our brothers and sisters in St. Kitts. I'm told that the ministry is making some available to St. Kitts so that it becomes a contribution to the entire Federation. We would like, again, to thank Mr. Sargent for his generous donation. Some more exciting news, members of the press. The Gender Affairs Department is currently hosting a web design training workshop for persons on Nevis. The initiative was launched on the 9th of January, and sessions will run every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. for the remainder of the month. Some 29 persons, male, female, some young, some not so young, have registered and will be introduced to topics such as website analytics with WordPress, WooCommerce and e-commerce options, search engine optimization, payment gateway integration, and more. Designing a website today goes beyond aesthetics to include content and the website's overall functionality. This is an area we encourage as more and more businesses, including government, are moving towards online platforms. Let me take this opportunity to thank the Invisible Hand Foundation and the facilitator, Mr. Rodney Brown of St. Kitts, for undertaking this particular training. Why am I excited about this? I'm excited about this because in this environment now of COVID-19, where we're telling people that being physically distant is part of the protocol, we are seeking to enhance the skill sets of our people, that they can develop websites, they can optimize websites, optimize search engines, and offer that service to others. This is something you can do from your home. So it fits very nicely into what we're seeking to do, to add value and to encourage our people not to simply sit back and say, oh, I can't find a job, but to create an opportunity. So the government isn't just sitting back. We are working, we are partnering with persons. We are saying, do something new, do something different. If you're accustomed to work at the hotel and the hotel is closed, or the hotel, because of inadequate occupancy, cannot employ you, do not simply sit back. Step up and take advantage of one of these opportunities. That is what we are seeking to do, to have our people retool and re-energize themselves and change the thinking so that we can proceed in a way that is beneficial to us and to our island. Some quick updates from tourism. The Pinnis Park project, I'm sure all of you drive along and you see it happening. I'm very proud of that project because when it's done, it will be a state-of-the-art modern facility for the benefit of the people of Nevis and, of course, the people of St. Kitts. I'm told that it is now at 45.3% level of completion. Don't ask me how the computation is done. I'm merely telling you what I'm told. 45.3%. And as we know, we should have a grand opening if all goes well in December. The public restrooms are nearing completion. The lawn amphitheater is substantively complete in terms of structural work. Some cosmetic stonework is to be done. Construction of the footpath along the southern border of the park leading from the amphitheater to the visitor center has commenced. And we are well underway in terms of the parking as well. The project is, I'm advised, on target to be completed by the expected completion date of December 2021. We are also proud to announce that, and I'll tell you more about it as we go, that we will have some upgrades at some of our heritage sites here in Nevis, specifically New River, Fort Charles, and Eden Brown. Those are sites that we look to do some work on, this year, and I will provide more information on that as we go. Some updates from the Nevis Tourism Authority. In collaboration with the Department of Community Development, the NTV hosted a very successful virtual event called Nothing Like a Nevision Holiday, which took place at the Hermitage Hotel. The event had over 10,000 viewers over the 4-hour production. We also have created at the NTA an infographic for incoming travelers, and this was done in collaboration with the Ministry of Health. They've also released a new adventure video highlighting key experiences and activities on Nevis, which has had very good engagement. And a new wellness video is to be released in February, March. We've also, through the NTA, using technology, hosted the first virtual fam trip in the UK and presented to key travel stakeholders, which was very well attended. Nevis, I'm sure all of you know as well, was recently featured on the famous Wheel of Fortune, with a contestant winning a prize to Nevis and accommodation at the Golden Rock Inn. And Llewellyn Clark, the pepper sauce man, was featured with the Four Seasons on ITV, one of the highest rated morning shows in the UK. This level of exposure is important because it demonstrates that despite the pandemic, we have not simply folded our hands. We are not simply saying, woe is me, woe is me. We are continually working. We are making effort, we are trying. Not everything is going to work, but I can assure you that we are out there every day seeking to do the best that we can. From agriculture, and I promise I shall soon be done with this introductory statement, the Ministry of Agriculture on January 19th would have hosted Agenda 2021 under the theme Reigniting the Passion and Trust as we ensure food and nutrition security. I was there, and we had a very inspiring address from a local farmer, Mackie Tross, who I think broke it down very nicely for all of those in attendance, even the non-technical folks like me. I would want to commend, of course, Minister Alexis Jeffers, Deputy Premier of Nevis, Minister of Agriculture in Nevis, but also Federal Minister of Agriculture for his dynamism and bringing this Agenda 2021, where all stakeholders in agriculture are brought together. Let me also commend his Permanent Secretary, Hughie Sargent, who continues to do an excellent job, and the Director of Agriculture, Mr. Randy Elliott, and the entire team. The Department of Agriculture will, I'm told, tomorrow, Friday, hold another of its weekly fresh produce sales. These are done in combination with farmers' markets to make available fresh produce at bargain prices to our residents. The Nevis Fisheries Complex, with support from the Department of Marine Resources, will also on Friday host the second annual Fish Festival at the Charlestown waterfront. Come on out for a taste of everything from the sea, and a fishing tournament is expected to take place. Fishers on Nevis are reminded of 3 consultations coming up next week, from the 1st to the 3rd of February, at the Disaster Management Office, the Franklin Brown Community Center, and the Charles Walters Community Center, respectively. I think that is very important. The Ministry of Agriculture has an important notice. What is that notice? The notice is that we continue to have a problem with Praedial larceny. It's a big word. All it means is the theft of crops. You see, you have some people go out to work every day, and they have other people who sit down and watch you go out to work every day and wait and lurk to steal what you have produced. We are a society that ought to encourage our people to go out and work every day and to make an honest living. And so the department recognizes that Praedial larceny continues to be a problem, and that some people are reaping where they did not sow. And we are asking our people to desist from that type of behavior. But the department is going further and is saying that where you, members of the public, are buying vegetables, fruits, please try as much as possible to buy from established farmers. If you find Johnny coming to try and sell you breadfruit and Johnny don't have no breadfruit tree, and you know breadfruit is normally $2, Johnny said give him 50 cents. It is possible that Johnny has reaped where he did not sow. And so one of the ways that we hope to tackle this perennial larceny is to cut off the avenue for those who are stealing from selling. And you, the members of the public, can help in that regard. And so that for us is a very important message that we would like to send. The ministry, and in my capacity as Premier of Nevis, I would also like to condemn unreservedly some recent acts of vandalism that we have seen. We saw one farmer's crops destroyed. We have just yesterday, I believe, or the day before, heard of another farmer's whose animals were destroyed. We have in this little Nevis been fighting valiantly since COVID came as an unexpected and uninvited visitor to enhance our food security. We cannot achieve that if we have farmers and others in conflict with each other who are set now upon destruction of crops and destruction of livestock. The government and the people will never achieve the food security that we seek if this is the case. And so I am imploring our people to do what is right and condemning unreservedly those bad actors who would have seen it fit to destroy a farmer's crops and have seen it fit to seek to destroy a farmer's livestock. We simply cannot continue in that vein. I have reached out to the police, and we are, of course, inviting them to do a thorough investigation so that those culprits could be brought to justice. But if they're hearing me, I want them to understand that there's no room in Nevis for that type of behavior. This government has tried its level best to help our farming community. We have provided free seeds, free seedlings, free land preparation, free plowing. We have made land available. We have provided free fencing, free water. All the inputs we have provided to seek to stimulate agricultural activity. For our livestock farmers, we've given them free feed. For our fisher folk, we provided free fish pot wire and other implements. I say free. You know nothing in government is free. What I mean by that is it's free to the farmers, but you, the taxpayers, have been the one to finance that. And all of this we've done because we have decided that the abiding lesson of COVID-19 is that the people of Nevis should never again be wholly dependent on tropical shipping coming in with food from Miami. We have to be able to feed ourselves and to be self-sufficient, at least in some of our food items. At Agenda 2021, I was advised that in 2020, we imported over $20 million of food products that could have been produced here. So this is not the other things that cannot be produced here. I'm talking about food products that could have been produced here. There's nothing stopping us from producing chicken, pork, mutton, beef, vegetables. And we know when we produce here, we have something that's fresh, we have something that's organic, we have something that we can trust. A lot of us rush to the supermarket and we buy a piece of meat. We have no idea where that meat is from or how long it has taken to get to us. We buy vegetables. We have no idea how long they have been refrigerated. No idea how they were produced, whether any chemicals were applied. When we eat our own, when we produce our own, we're able to eat healthier. We're able to support our local economy. Imagine, if you will, that $20 million had stayed here and had been spent in the local economy instead of exported to Miami to buy food, to be sent in refrigerated containers to us. I think, ladies and gentlemen, that all of us have to support our farmers. And where people are seeking to do damage to farmers, we must condemn it unreservedly. And so we're very clear in that regard. Before I leave agriculture, we were forced yesterday to put out a press release from the Premier's ministry because the Department of Agriculture advised that the Gingerland Cemetery was painted by a group of youngsters who I believe were well-meaning, but who sought to paint the cemetery wall without any permission or any discussion with the Department of Agriculture, which manages the cemeteries on Nevis. And so yesterday, through the Premier's ministry, we did something that I never thought would have been necessary, but it has proven necessary, which is to say that we encourage organizations and civic groups to do activities in the community. In fact, those activities help build better and stronger communities. But please, where government property is concerned, ensure that you have conducted yourself in accordance with the law and that you have sought and obtained the necessary permissions. With proper consultation and discussion, the activity could be managed, it could be agreed upon. Nobody is surprised, there's no controversy. There is simply contribution to the development of the island. And so yesterday we put out a very clear release to remind the people of what is obvious. That you can't just go down and paint administration building on Sunday and say it needed paint, so we painted purple. That while you encourage civic organizations and groups to contribute, that those organizations and groups must understand that they contribute in a particular context. Because if we don't have that, we will end up with chaos on the island. And so we're simply appealing to our groups, community groups, civic organizations, whoever they may be, that when they wish to make a contribution that involves any alteration, any beautification to public property, that they simply consult with and obtain the permission from the relevant ministry. I don't believe there's anything controversial in that, and so I'm hopeful that we will not have that problem reoccurring in the future. I promise that I'm coming to the end so that I could have some questions. Just to announce that we are having a Sportsman and Sportswoman of the Year 2020. I'm told that on the 28th of January at 11 a.m., it's not today, at 11 a.m., that presentation will be made to the Sportsman and Sportswoman of the Year 2020. It has been coordinated by sportscaster Curtis Morton, who we know from NTV, Nevis Television. The Sportsman of the Year is Kesron Colin Archibald, who merits the award based on the fact that he was the only player from St. Kitts and Nevis to make it into the St. Kitts Nevis Patriots team. And the Sportswoman of the Year is Tashika Bowen. She was the MVP of the exciting netball tournament hosted by the Ministry of Sports and the Nevis Netball Association. We certainly commend them and wish them well. Let me give you another headline. We are congratulating the following players on their selection to the West Indies under-19 squad. Carlon Tuckett, Akidianto Willett, Jaden Carmichael, Justin Armadan, and Onaje Amri. We wish the players all the best and hope that they will make it into the final squad. The 2022 ICC Under-19 World Cup is scheduled to take place in the West Indies. Let me also congratulate Kyron Powell, Ross Powell, and Colin Kesey Archibald, who will be representing the Leeward Island Hurricanes in the Super 50 tournament, which commences in February. So cricket is certainly making a comeback, and our youngsters are making us proud, and we're hopeful that they will continue in that regard. Some cultural notes. We are very proud to have seen the revitalization of steel pan in Nevis. This was evidenced at the recently held Sugar Mass 49 Panorama in St. Kitts. I believe that Nevisians should be proud that of the 7 bands competing in the Panorama for Sugar Mass, 4 were from Nevis. The Pandora's Steel Orchestra, the Sweet Sticks Ensemble, Steel on Fire, and the Nevis Pan Ensemble. I believe that that ought to be commended. In addition, Delhi Speedy, and Daddy Tusty of the core band were featured as top road march winners in the Federation in the Sugar Mass Icons show. We will continue through the NCDF to foster cultural development here on the island of Nevis, and I think that we should applaud all of those who are involved in keeping our culture alive. I believe, ladies and gentlemen, that I have given you quite a substantial amount of information. I ask your forgiveness, as I often do, if I have been overly long. I did try my best to limit some of the information that I was given, but I believe that my report has been fulsome, and I would now invite your questions.
Good morning, Premier Brantley.
Good morning.
Glenn Bart, SKN Newsline. 3 questions. With the expected reduction of income to the Nevis Island administration, how difficult will it be to sustain salaries of the civil servants and for the implementation of programs and capital projects? Secondly, with regards to the situation with the movie being made in Nevis, is this a one-off occurrence, or is there an organized program of promotion that the NIA is pursuing to bring filmmaking to Nevis? Thirdly, with the uncertainty of the full recovery of tourism over the next 2 or 3 years, what direction is the NIA steering the economy of Nevis, and what is the medium-term development vision for the island? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bart. Thank you for your questions. Salaries and whether we can sustain what we're doing, we are hopeful that we can. The government has done everything in its power. During what I would call the worst days of the pandemic, we may yet have days that prove to be worse than we are experiencing now. I do not know what the future holds, but certainly last year when we had lockdowns and the like, and people were very dislocated at the time, we tried our best to keep things together. We have done that with the limited resources that we have. Our bankers have been kind to us. They've allowed us some facilities. And we are hopeful that if we could have done that then, that now that the economy is showing some signs of life, that it will allow us to continue. I am not predicting or expecting spectacular growth this year, but I'm hopeful that we can continue to keep our head above water and continue to keep the lights on. And so I will commit, as I've often done to our public servants, that we will do right by them and that we will continue to do all in our power to ensure that they're paid and that they have the resources that they need to feed their families and to function. For others who are not privileged to have a public service job at this point, we continue to do all that we can to massage the local economy, to encourage investment. And this movie deal that you spoke about is one such nuance, if you will, a new string to our bow that we have been trying to work on and which has now borne some fruit. You asked, is this one-off? We hope not. I have said in my opening statement that the intention is to build a film industry here on Nevis. It has been quite a spectacular coup for
Morning, Mr. Premier. Happy New Year to you and everyone that's listening and watching online. LK, who led the Department of Information? With respect to the filming of the movie, in certain meetings since the end of February, can you speak to the level of financial infusion into the local economy? I think people like to hear dollars and cents when they get invested. Also, how is Nevis managing in terms of its quarantine accommodation capacity? And is there any enhanced vigilance or concerns with respect to the new strains of COVID-19? Thank you.
Ms. Hewlett, thank you very much for your question. The financial spend, I'm told, will be in the region of $1 million, give or take. So it is not a huge sum in the context of a local economy, but it is significant enough because we are hopeful that that spend will largely remain here on Ireland. And so we're talking about $1 million. And as I said, we have indicated that they will be hiring some 30 persons for the 3.5 months or so that will be here. And in addition to the movies, they'll be hiring up to 200 extras, all of whom will be paid. So there'll be an opportunity for some of our people at least to earn over the short term. Insofar as, of course, they're also renting hotel rooms, the restaurants, taxis, transportation, all of those things, laundry, if they go to the spa, if they go play golf, all of these things are things that obviously they will pay for. So I'm told that the estimated spend is about $1 million. Insofar as the quarantine efforts are concerned, I have had no complaints. I believe that the task force here, locally headed by Dr. Nisbet, has been working effectively, that they have no issues brought to my attention. We have quarantine facilities. I believe that the system that's in place federally works well, that persons are required to book, essentially, that they book their stay, and that based on that they come in and are accommodated. And so just yesterday, in fact, anecdotally, I spoke to someone, a Nivision, from New York who had come in quarantine, and he said he had an incredible time. He was at Potworks. He said the 14 days he had a very enjoyable time, and that he's now out of quarantine. We have had a lot of commendation that has come from guests who have visited to say that they are very impressed with our professionalism and how the system has worked. I know, Ms. Hewlett, that not everybody's happy. I know that there's been some criticism. Many have said that the 14-day quarantine is too long. I console myself with the fact that what we have been doing now for the last nearly a year, I'm seeing other countries now deciding that they have to do it. And when we look at the situation that is unfolding internationally, I believe that we ought to commend our effort and to say that notwithstanding the difficulties and the inconvenience, that we have taken good decisions that has kept us safe. And so I feel very strongly that that is the case. In terms of enhanced vigilance for the new strains, I'm told that yes, we are testing, but fortunately for us, grateful to God that we have had no indications yet of the new strain being here. I believe in the OECS only St. Lucia has reported a detection of the new strain thus far.
Good morning. Just
morning.
a few questions.
Who are you and who do you represent?
Sorry, Devon Cornelius, WinFM.
Thank you.
Firstly, what is the timeline for the one and only resort, and when should construction commence, and are there any other projects in the pipeline? Secondly, allow me to reference quote an article published by the Department of Information on December 14th, which says the temporary suspension of overseas travel for all public servants, including members of cabinet, unless these travels are fully funded by third parties, the reduction of the monthly travel allowance payable to all public servants, including members of cabinet, by 50%, the temporary suspension of payment of increments to all civil servants, and the deferral of any request for promotion of officers or upgrade in their salaries and wages. In addition, we defer the employment of any new officers to the public service. Regarding the announcement you made about the new hire for the special advisor, does this new hire indicate that the freeze is over? Thirdly, what is the status of severance payments, and can you provide data about the number of persons who received payments on Nevis? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cornelius. I start where you left off in terms of severance payments. I believe I saw you at the Prime Minister's press conference. You didn't ask that question. The federal government, as you know, is responsible for severance payments. They handle that over there. What I can tell you is that the last report that I would have had suggests that severance payments are being handled on a first-come, first-served basis. The largest group of persons on Nevis still without severance payment would be those from the Four Seasons. But that largely came about because of how their severance was handled in terms of the timing. You will recall that the Four Seasons was persuaded to continue to pay their workers, I believe, up until the month of June. And so those workers would not have started to be laid off until July, August. The system, as I understand it, they will then count 12 weeks, 3 months, from the date of layoff before the severance payment claim can be considered. So if you start counting from, say, August, September, October, November would be the 12 weeks, your severance pay would not be considered until December. And so I am advised that those who have not yet been paid ought to be paid shortly, and that the federal government is doing all in its power to make good on the severance payment requirements. I get this call every day, so I understand very much that people are concerned that severance pay is due to them and that they ought to get it, particularly where people are unemployed. And so this is a continuing problem, but I've been advised that they're working hard to resolve it, and the Minister of Labour and St. Kitts, the Honourable Wendy Phipps, has updated us to say that they're trying their level best to get everyone squared away and everyone paid. In relation to the new hire, you asked, is this a suspension? The short answer is no. This was something that was negotiated since last year. We delayed the implementation until this year, and so that is merely a manifestation of that, and no suspension whatsoever of our decision to cut costs or contain costs in the short term by the various measures that you've announced. Painful measures, but measures that we thought were necessary. And so this is a situation where the negotiations were concluded since last year, but we delayed until this year to implement. The other question you asked, you mentioned the resort that we have proposed. The agreements that we have signed would have indicated that we would see a start of construction in 12 months and a potential opening in 2023. I believe that was the deal that has been signed. Certainly we will know more as we go, whether or not those developers who have come on board can deliver in that time frame. I should just say that from a government point of view, we are no longer doing open-ended arrangements with developers. Whatever this government does now will have a time frame attached to it. And the reason for that is that we have found that some developers have had 15, 20 years and have done nothing. We are saying that you get 12 months, you get 18 months. If you don't deliver, you must come back to us and you must renegotiate. And part of that renegotiation is to tell us why it is you have not delivered. Because a lot of developments around here have simply not done a thing. And if you're not delivering, then it means that the people of Nevis are not getting any benefit. And so that is a position that this government has taken. So 12 months is the period of time, Mr. Cornelius, that has been granted for this particular development to start construction. And as I'm saying, the anticipation is by 2023, we should have the resort, if in fact all goes as we expect it to go.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Monique, Washington St. Kitts Nevis Observer newspaper. Starting where you ended about the hotel, over the past years, we would have seen many agreements signed between different hotels and the NIA. How many of these hotel agreements in the past are still standing now? Now, can you give us an idea on how much taxes was collected for 2020 compared to previous years, and how does the government plan to collect outstanding taxes? When it comes to water, you revealed during your opening that there are a number of persons and businesses that, oh, for services, maybe for years. My question is, why were they allowed to go so far without paying it, and why weren't they disconnected? Because I know persons who would have been disconnected for $300. Why were they allowed to go so far? And when it comes to this year, we have the Agriculture Open Day Interprimary. What are the plans for those when it comes to Agriculture Open Day Interprimary and Culturama? Now, Dr. Laws said that when the vaccine arrives, we'll be able to vaccinate about 20% of the population. Now, will you be leading the charge in being one of the first persons to take the vaccine? You also spoke about agriculture. Now, the government would have given farmers fencing and free water and seedlings and all of these different things. But as a consumer, we don't see any reduce in the cost of these produce. Now, what is being...
The produce or the price?
The price of the produce. Now, what is the government doing, if anything, to regulate the price of the produce? And that is it for now. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Washington. Let me start where you left off and talk about agriculture for a moment. We are hopeful that the market will regulate the price of produce, because agricultural produce is not one of the items that under the law is regulated by Consumer Affairs. It's not in the basket of goods, so to speak. One of the things that we're doing is that exactly what I announced, that tomorrow the Ministry, Department of Agriculture, is actually doing a weekly sale where the prices are the lowest that they could offer. So you can buy directly from the Department of Agriculture to get savings. We are also doing things like the farmers market, where we bring people together under the auspices of the Department of Agriculture, again, to generate lower prices. But let's be fair. The farmers have said to us that they have passed on, because remember, most of the farmers are focused on farming. They're not focused on marketing. So they produce. What they produce then goes to those people all around the island, in the market and at the food stands that you see around, fruit stalls, etc., vegetable stands around the island. And farmers have complained that because of the inputs that they have had a subsidy on from the government, whether it's free or heavily subsidized, they have in fact passed on that to those who are buying from them. The problem now seems to be that those people are not passing on the savings to the consumer. So the intermediary, so to speak, seems to be a bit of a problem. And we have appealed and continue to appeal to those to do the right thing. One farmer, for example, told me that he sold a particular crop, I think he said was melons, I can't remember the crop, but he said he sold at $1.50 a pound. He delivered to one of these vendors the produce to $1.50 a pound. And he was shocked to go back later and see the same produce being sold at $5 a pound. So it means that that vendor put on $3.50 per pound. So the farmer was saying, well, I have done my best. I have given the best price that I can because I got some concessions from the government. But the vendor has not passed on the savings to the consumer. So we are also appealing. Everybody needs to eat and everybody wants to make a dollar. I understand that. But we're appealing to vendors as well to be responsible. So it's not always the farmers. They get the blame, but it's not always the farmers themselves. We are hopeful that with the new facility at the marketing division, we're building a large refrigerated facility at Prospect that will be able to store more, afford farmers themselves a better opportunity to sell, and therefore be in greater control of prices as we unsell to the general public. So I wanted to make that clear. In the interim, for cheaper produce, we suggest that you buy from the marketing division because they're doing this every Friday. Hotel agreements, you're absolutely right. Successive governments over the years have signed a lot of hotel agreements. We have seen very few materialize. And so it begs the question as to whether we are taking the right approach. And that is why one of the things we have done as a government is we have said that now we are going to limit the time frame involved. That if you cannot deliver within the specified time frame, we must come back to the table and explain why. Whether this is just speculative or whether or not you are a real developer with real money and real intentions. So that is one of the avenues that we are using. Some are still on the books, like for example the proposed Wyndham development. They have written in the last few weeks to say that they're still keenly interested, but have had setbacks due to COVID. This new development that we have signed recently, that we've given a 12-month window to start construction. We will see what happens. The truth is that as a government, we continue to try. Some of these do not materialize for one reason or another, but we continue to try, and we will continue to try. And I will not shy away from making these efforts because efforts in the past have not succeeded. I will continue to try. What I say, try, and try again until you succeed. So I feel that we will continue to make best efforts. But let me point out that I have no preoccupation with hotels. I've heard the criticisms. I've heard all that has been said. There's a sense, it seems, in some quarters in Nevis that only if you bring a hotel have you done something for the Nevisian economy. I think that that is short-sighted. And I would encourage all of us to consider for a moment if Nevis had another 2 or 3 resorts, which some people look to as the only indication of economic advancement, how would we have fared in this pandemic? All of them would have been closed. And all the people working there would have been home. I am not persuaded that that is the only form of development. That is why you hear me talking about agriculture. You hear me talking about the small business sector. You hear me talking about construction. You hear me talking about the film industry. You hear me talking about financial services. I feel that development comes in different ways. And there may not be a single development that brings 300 jobs. But there may be 10 that bring 30 jobs each. And you end up with the same 300 jobs. And that is why we are taking a holistic approach. And as Premier, I am not out there at all running after hotel development because that seems to be the holy grail for some. I am looking for development in the most holistic way that we can have it. And if that means a film industry with spin-offs for tourism and spin-offs for our local people getting involved, the next Denzel Washington could be sitting in this room. The next Cicely Tyson could be listening to me right now. This is an avenue for our creativity to come forth. There's so much benefit beyond the economic gains that we can get. The development of our society and our people. And giving our young people the opportunity. Could you imagine what it's going to be like when these stars come here for this 2 movies and our local people are allowed to rub shoulders and understand how this movie thing go and how it's made and the transfer of skills. All of these, I think, are very important initiatives which are part and parcel of development. So, I am not preoccupied with hotels. If we can get hotels, wonderful. But we can get financial services, we can get some banks. You know, we licensed 2 banks, I'm told. One now employs close to 30 people. The other employs a similar number. That's nearly 60 good-paying jobs. If this 3rd bank now does anything similar, you see what I'm talking about. These are accountants. These are people with law degrees. These are people who train in finance. And these are people who are making a reasonable wage. And that's what we're trying to do. So, we remain optimistic, Ms. Washington, that these various hotel projects will proceed. Taxes in 2020, I can tell you, I don't have the precise figure, but we were 20% off the mark from where we were in 2019. And so we had a 20% reduction in what we were able to collect. And so it has been difficult, and I haven't shied away from that. I think I have been very forthright with the Nevisian public to say that we've had some difficulties in that regard. But we remain optimistic, and we continue to provide services at an acceptable level to the people of Nevis. You asked about water, businesses owing and why they were allowed to owe for so long. It's a question I ask myself. So you and I were asking the same question. And I'm not sure that we have a satisfactory answer, except that it happened. And I'm saying that it has to stop. So, whatever the reasons were that some people were allowed to rack up large bills in terms of water and electricity without being disconnected, we are now appealing to those people to say, you've had a free ride for long enough. Come in now and make an arrangement to pay your bill. If you can't pay it in full, then pay it in part, because you'll have to pay. Agriculture opened their inter-primary culture arm and no decisions have yet been taken, but I'm sure that in the fullness of time I'll be able to come and advise you and the press as to what we're doing in relation to that. Vaccination. You said the CMO said 20% of the population. I believe that is under this so-called COVAX, what is it called now? The COVAX facility. That it was, the down payment was to allow you to get 20% of your population. So in our case, we have a population, say, 50,000. So we should be able to vaccinate 20,000. Is that 20%? 10,000. 10,000, I'm sorry. Thank you for correcting my math. So 10,000 people, and those are intended to be the most vulnerable groups initially. So would I lead the charge? I, in fact, had hoped that you would volunteer to be among the first, Ms. Washington, because clearly we're told elsewhere that the vaccine is in such short supply that people are scrambling to get it. I do not know how the health authorities are going to decide who will get the vaccine first, but certainly it will be an important exercise for all of us to get the vaccine. Incidentally, if I'm allowed a moment of frivolity, I'm told that many of you are saying that the politicians should have it first, because if anything goes wrong, there won't be a huge loss to society. Before you report that as a headline, that's intended to be a joke. Any other questions?
Good morning. I am here representing BHC, which stands for Black Home Channel. In the Prime Minister's New Year's address, he said that the federal government will soon be reorganizing the federal office on Nevis to better serve Nevisians. My question is, Mr. Brantley, you have been elected in the federal parliament for well over 10 years. I remember shortly after you were elected, former Prime Minister Dr. Denzel Douglas paid you money every month for an office and a secretary. My question is, why didn't you operationalize that office you were paid for? And what did you do with the thousands of dollars that was paid into your account every month for an office and a secretary that was never there? Question number 2, in regards to your statement, the statement on the cemetery wall in Gingerland, I myself didn't know that the government owned that wall, so I'm certain the youths did not know as well. But I can tell you, as a member of the media, persons in the community are very happy with the restoration of that wall. Make the whole area is looking brand new. But my question to you is, why did you feel the need to embarrass young people who are doing good in the community by responding in a long official statement from your office? Why didn't you reach out privately to the young persons? Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Hanley, you said you weren't aware that the government owned the wall at the cemetery. Based on that admission, I can forgive you because you weren't aware. The first question you posed suggests that that is not the only thing you're not aware of. Because frankly, if you inform yourself as to how government works prior to coming here and asking questions, you would understand that at no point would I have ever had money into an account for any office of the opposition or any person working in any such office. The way government works is that if those sums were paid, they would be allocated to the landlord for the office and to the worker, not to me. So you clearly were not aware, and I forgive you again, as to how government works and how government operates. Now, you said that we embarrass the young people. The press release that I saw did not mention, even reference, the Gingerland wall. We made a general statement to remind the public. And we started that statement by saying that civic involvement must be encouraged. But clearly, you and everybody else must accept that it cannot be a free-for-all. You can't walk down the street tomorrow, see a building in town and say, well, I don't know who owned that building, let's paint it. I mean, where would we end up? That would be chaos. So far from embarrassing anyone, we didn't issue any statement which was specific to that group or what that group did. We issued a general statement which said civic participation should be encouraged. However, please ensure that where public property is involved, that you get the requisite approval, that you consult. So had you asked somebody, you would have been told that the wall is government property, that the cemetery is managed by the Ministry of Agriculture. And I hope you didn't ask because you wanted to revel in the fact that you could say you didn't know. Because sometimes people revel in that state of ignorance. They say, well, I don't know and I'm not going to ask anything because it suits whatever agenda they're seeking to serve. I would not suggest that that was your purpose. But had you asked, as I would assume any reasonable group would do, then you would have been told, well, listen, this is the position. Well, I have some purple paint. Well, perhaps purple was not an appropriate color for the cemetery. Could we maybe do something different color? I don't know. I'm not an expert on cemetery paint. But what I'm saying is that it is only through the proper dialogue and the proper channels, and frankly, the proper respect. Because a lot of what we do has an underpinning of discourtesy and disrespect to it. I'm going to go and do it, and if they want to cuss, let them cuss. That seems to be fueling some of the attitudes that we're seeing, and we're saying it's not necessary. If the effort is a genuine effort to contribute, then find out. So you can't in good conscience say that you were involved in this event and you didn't know. Because if that is the standard, then maybe you come up by me and say, you don't know I own the house and I go to Sinkis as I did last week and I come back and made it paint green. And you say you're making a contribution because my house needed painting and you didn't know. Ask a question. Be responsible. That is all that we're saying. So there was no effort whatsoever, Mr. Hanley. And I would ask you to disabuse your mind of that there was any effort to seek to embarrass anybody. That was never the intention. Even today, I made it clear that I'm certain that these young people were well-intentioned. I'm certain that they were. But I'm asking going forward that the only way to avoid chaos is for people to do things properly. It is part of my continued request for our people to be responsible. That is all. And so I don't know what color was put and whether that color was appropriate. All I do know is that no permission was given, no consultation was had, and we're saying that that ought not to reoccur. So the next time you feel like painting something, ask a question. Seek the dialogue. Seek the necessary engagement so that when it's done, there need be no discussion and no conversation because everybody's on the same page. Are there any other questions for me?
Just a few more questions. Devon Cornelius, 1FM. Questions are being raised about persons being hired in positions that one was made redundant in. Can you explain how the system works in regards to this matter? And could you explain the role of the federal office now that there are 3 members of the NIA in the federal cabinet? Thank you.
Mr. Cornelius, I'm not sure I know what you mean when you say people are being hired in roles that were made redundant. Are you talking about in the government?
In the tourism industry.
Again, I'm a little perplexed. I can speak to what happens in government. If you're saying the tourism industry, we have the Ministry of Tourism, we have the Nevis Tourism Authority. Then we have the various hotels, we have restaurants. I don't quite understand. What I do know the law says is that if a position has been made redundant, that person who has been made redundant, who held that position, becomes eligible to collect severance pay. And that same position cannot thereafter be filled because the position, remember, what is made redundant isn't the person, it's the position, has been phased out, it's been made redundant. So if I had a security guard and I invested in cameras, security cameras, I may say, well, the security guard is no longer necessary, so he's been made redundant. He collects severance pay. I ought not then to come back and hire another security guard. So I can only speak in that general way, because I don't know the specifics of what you mean when you ask your question. Role of the federal office in Nevis. There has always been a federal office in Nevis since I've known myself. I believe Dr. Douglas opened a federal office in Nevis way back in the 1990s, if memory serves. I don't know why this federal office is even newsworthy, to be entirely honest with you, because it has always been there. So if the Prime Minister wishes to come to Nevis, to the federal office that has always been there, always been existent, why is there a need to question me about that? So I really don't see that there is anything here, you know, that requires commentary on my part. I feel that this is something that has always existed. And if this Prime Minister says that he wants to come and meet whoever he wants to meet at the federal office, that's a matter for him. He's entitled to do so. I see no issue there at all. I believe the people of Nevis, as you say, have elected those who represent them. And they're very clear as to who represents them and who represents their interests at the federal level. And beyond that, I can't go. I feel that in the fullness of time, the people have another opportunity to elect those who represent them, as we do every election, and it'll be a matter for the people. So the issue of the federal office, I think, is a non-issue. Are there any other questions for me?
Good morning, everyone. Jarvis Brown, Vaughan Radio. Greetings to you, Mr. Premier, and all the best in your endeavors for this year being 2021, even to you and the Nevis Island administration. Mr. Premier, we would just like to have clarification on two matters specifically. In your budget address last year, you did mention that the NIA won't be hiring, so to speak. We just wanted to know what's the time period like? Is it 6 months, 3 months, etc.? And also in relation to the announcement of the new NEVLEC general manager, are you at liberty to say if he'll be here, let's say, for a year or two or whatever the space of time is? And lastly, sir, as it relates to vending, of course, I know, of course, that as of the 18th of this month, the vendors are not allowed to be on the streets of Charleston, etc. And it has been encouraged and even written from the traffic department that they should be at the Charleston Public Market or along the Market Street. But, Mr. Premier, in that respect, are you at liberty to say or even provide some clarity as it relates to some sort of vending committee to deal with those kind of issues, so to speak, sir? And those are our questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Jarvis from Vaughan Radio. Let me say on the vending issue that I'm not aware that there's any committee. And certainly if vendors would wish to form themselves into some kind of association to liaise with government, they would be welcomed. But we have always had in Charlestown an orderly situation where people knew what the rules were and people conducted themselves accordingly. I admit that as Premier of Nevis, I was consulted, and last year, as a response to the very real difficulties that people were having, we relaxed the rules. And we relaxed them and we indicated quite clearly that it was a temporary relaxation that would come to an end at the end of 2020. Well, 2020 has ended. And the police have come, we have consulted, and we have decided that we must now, to use this language, reclaim the streets of Charlestown. It cannot be right that persons are forced to walk in traffic because people are vending on all the sidewalks. That a man could pull a clothesline across the D.R. Waldwin Plaza and hang up some Bob Marley t-shirts, say he selling t-shirts. That you get a business license and rent a small spot in town and a man come and hang his clothes right on your window that he's selling. And we have seen in other islands and other countries when vending goes unchecked what it can lead to. We, however, understand that people want to make a living. So we're trying to come to a compromise. And the compromise we have proposed is to say We don't want any vending on Main Street, except I think that there's some vendors who have been grandfathered because they've been there forever. We're asking vendors who are selling the little vegetables, whatever they're selling, that there's space in the public market. I believe the last report I saw said that the public market could accommodate 24 vendors, and that there was some, I believe, 10 or so stalls that were available. So we're saying there's space there. The public market was designed specifically for the sale of fruits and vegetables. We're saying also that we will designate the whole street, I believe it's called Market Street, where we'll not allow any traffic. It will be pedestrian only, and people can set up on both sides. What we are contemplating can happen is that that street can become a go-to street for vendors and for those purchasing, so that people know exactly where to go. And that they can stroll along there, buy, chit-chat, go to the market. It becomes, if you will, a bit of a destination for people. As opposed to what we're seeing now, where people want to set up on any available piece of concrete, any bus stop, anything that they can find in Charlestown. We do not wish that for charming Charlestown. And so we have not banned vending in town. We have simply said, we do not wish you to vend on Main Street. We have designated a street that you can go to and set up for purposes of your vending. And so we're asking people to adjust, not to abandon their business, but to adjust. And that is where we are in relation to that. The Nevlec GM, don't want to mislead you. I did not ask that specific question as to how long. What I can say is the normal course would be 2 years for a contract. I don't know if he has gone a little longer or a little shorter, but I can confirm that and get back to you. Are there any other questions for me?
The one with the NIA hiring, not hiring.
Oh, I'm sorry. You know, I'm looking at it and I still didn't respond, so please forgive me. The NIA not hiring, and whether that's 3 months, 6 months, that's difficult to answer. I think what we're trying to do is to see how things go, because so much now is unpredictable. When we look, for example, at Barbados, which is now gone back into lockdown, we look at other countries and the difficulties they're having. It will be very difficult for me as Premier to tell you today that in 3 months we're going to start hiring people in the government, because we do not know where we're going to be in 3 months. So I would hope that each month you ask me the question, and as we go, I will be better able to answer you. Ms. Washington?
Monique Washington, St. Kitts Nevis Observer. Back to agriculture. Now, it was either last year or a year before, the Department of Agriculture asked all farmers that were squatting on government lands to come in and, get a lease or whatever the courts might be. Now, we're made to understand that there are some lands up Westbury that are owned by the government but are leased to a company. However, they are squatters on that land. What is the government doing, or what is that company doing? Well, the government, let's start with that, to ensure that lands that they lease to someone else is not being occupied by squatters?
Well, the short answer is that that is not government's responsibility. If government has leased land to a company, it is the company now has the legal right to those lands under the terms of the lease. So once they pay their rent, they have the right to occupy those lands. If people were to squat on those lands, it's a matter for the company to enforce their rights, not for the government. I'm aware of the situation that you've described, and it is not the best situation, but we recognize that some farmers have captured land. I think that's the word that they use nowadays. They've basically gone onto the land and occupied it. And the government, because we're pushing food security, because we recognize the difficulties that the island is experiencing in terms of COVID, and that people need something to do, we have not been aggressive in any way in relation to those people. In fact, we have tried our best to help. And some of those same persons, even though they are squatting on these lands, have benefited from government plows and government backhoes and cleaning the land, etc. for them. But I believe everybody that I have spoken to who is in that condition understands that they have no legal right to occupy. They have no leasehold on those lands. And that certainly the leasehold holder who is the company, can at some point intervene legally if they so desire. The government really will seek to do what it can to promote dialogue, to see whether or not those persons who are actually producing can be regularized. But at the end of the day, it is not strictly the government's responsibility because the government has already leased the land to the company.
But doesn't the government fear any backlash coming from the company, being that you leased it to them, but you're not being aggressive enough to tell the farmers you can't do that, or by sending plowers there to plow on land that you know is not leased to them?
Yeah, but why is the government? That's what I'm saying. You're putting the onus on the government. What about the leasehold? If you rent a house from me, and I give you the keys for the house, and some neighbor keeps coming into your house, it is for me to come and deal with that, or you who are the tenant to deal with that? That's really the issue. So it's not, the onus is not on the government. The onus that I would accept is for the government to encourage dialogue among the parties. And that is certainly something that we've already embarked on. But in terms of saying it's for the government to enforce, the government technically has leased the land to the company, so it's for the company to enforce. But we will have that dialogue, Ms. Washington. We recognize that it's an uncomfortable situation, that people have gone onto the land of their own volition, and people have invested. And we have, you're right, encouraged investment to some extent, that we have facilitated in terms of plowing, and even in the case of one farmer provided some pipes to help him with water and things like that, because we are also promoting food security. Our thinking, though, in talking to these people is to say, listen, recognize that at the end of the day, the lands are leased to this company, and if the company were to decide tomorrow that they need the lands, then you would have to quit the lands. And people have decided that they're willing to take that risk and have gone ahead. So we will engage in some dialogue with the parties to see if we can regularize those few farmers who are there. But I don't want people to say that that's the primary role or responsibility of the government, because I don't think it is. Yes.
In regards to the federal office, at the Prime Minister's press conference, I asked him whether or not he will be coming to Nevis periodically to meet with Nevisians who are in desperate need of government support. The Prime Minister responded to me and said, yes, that is why he will be reorganizing the federal office to better serve Nevisians, because the current federal office there is not fit for purpose. My question to you is, Mr. Brantley, you have been a federal parliamentarian for almost 20 years now, representing the people of Nevis. Why didn't you think of reorganizing that federal office to better serve Nevisians? In regards to the cemetery wall matter, as Premier of Nevis, so holding such a high office on the island, why do you feel the need to respond so angrily over the painting of a cemetery wall? Thank you.
Mr. Hanley, I get the sense you've run out of questions to ask, because you're now telling me that I'm angrily responding. I don't know where you discerned anger. It is not angry to tell you the facts as they are. So, you know, I've said to you in the past, and I think that your skill set has improved dramatically over the months that you have been here with us. But at the end of the day, this is intended to be a serious engagement. This is not intended to be comedy hour. Culturama is still far away, so the clowns are not yet getting themselves ready. Let us be serious about what we engage in. You have asked questions, and I've tried to the best of my ability, to respond. If you detected anger, there was no anger that was intended on my part, so I don't know where that even comes in. So I will just put that as one of those things that you say because you have the mic. Now, in relation to the federal office, you keep seeming to make reference to what the Prime Minister said at his press conference. The Prime Minister is the Prime Minister. And the beauty about the Prime Minister, he has a press conference. And so if you want to know what he meant and what he said and why he's doing something, ask him. I saw you there. So you have the ability to ask him. Don't come here to tell me he said this and he said that, because I'm not I'm not an interpreter for the Prime Minister. He's quite eloquent, far more eloquent than I am. He can speak for himself. Now, the question as to why I didn't do something about the federal office. Again, I think you need to think through these matters before you ask these questions, because the federal office has never been within my purview. At no point. Being a federal parliamentarian is different to being a federal minister. And as you ought to know, I have been a federal parliamentarian since 2007. I became a federal minister in 2015. There's a fundamental difference. One is in parliament, where laws are made. The other is in government, where policies and prescriptions are made. So, if you were to ask me why it is I have not revamped the federal office since 2015, since I've been a federal minister, my answer to you is that the federal office has never had anything to do with me. It's never fallen into my portfolio. It has never, ever had anything to do with me as an individual. The federal office, as I understand it, was set up way back in the 1990s for that very purpose, to allow the Prime Minister, if he needs to come to Nevis, a space for him to work out of. And at one point, I believe, we had Mr. Amri serving in the capacity as Minister of Nevis Affairs or something like that. But that was never constituted. Nothing was ever done in relation to actually setting up a ministry in that regard. That ministry has disappeared since this new government, in the new term of this government. So, again, to me, there is a tempest in a teacup about a federal office. I am unmoved. I don't even know why the media has even mentioned a federal office, unless you are seeking simply to remind the people that one has been here since 1996 or 97. 97 by my tally is about 23 years ago. So, what's the news? For my part, I really don't understand what the news is. So if the Prime Minister says, I'm going to come to my federal office that I've had in Nevis since 1997 to meet divisions for whatever purpose, what's newsworthy about that? He's, after all, the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, lest we forget. So I don't see that there is any need to waste any more ink or any more conversation on what I consider to be a non-starter as a topic about federal office. If something new happens, then I promise you that I will try my best to respond to that. But having a federal office here is neither here nor there. One has been here for the last 2 decades at least. So I hope, Mr. Hanley, that I have tried my best to answer you. And if you have any other questions, then I'll be pleased to take those as well. No more questions for me? Okay. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all for being here. Our first press conference for the new year. I hope I've given you something to write about, and that there will be some headlines coming that are favorable to the people of Nevis. Monique is saying, I don't know what that means. But I think that, that we have tried our very best to give a fulsome report as to what's happening on the island. And I thank you, I thank NTV, I thank Von Radio, I thank all of those who cover this particular event every month. And I end where I started to say how proud I am to be able to have this engagement with the media and with the people of Nevis. Let me also thank my good friend Carl Tyson. And Carl, what's the name of the company? Caribbean Digital Displays, because they've done up a wonderful backdrop for me here now. We go on high tech now at the Premier's press conference. So Carl, thank you very much for your excellent, excellent service. And I recommend him to anybody. He does an excellent job. So thank you very much. Thank you all for being here. Good day, and God bless you.